repaired root canal system. We'll now outline the procedure for filling a maxillary central incisor. Before we begin filling the canal, the materials are set up for a filling appointment. Clinically, if the tooth has been started but not obturated, the tooth should be asymptomatic. The temporary filling material and cotton pellet will need to be removed. We have already removed the temporary filling material and the cotton pellet from the access opening. The canal has been irrigated and the final file is placed to working length. The radiograph shows the file in place. The canal is prepared to a number 60 file at 24 millimeters from the incisal edge. The length is correct and the criteria for canal preparation have been fulfilled. We now dry the canal with sterile absorbent paper points. Coarse points are used initially, followed by a few medium points. After the canal is dry, we use an absorbent point to test the apical opening. Measure the paper point 1 millimeter longer than the working length. Since the working length was 24 millimeters for this canal, we measure the paper point at 25 millimeters. Place this in the canal to length, withdraw it, and inspect the tip for any exudate or blood. If it goes to its full length, 25 millimeters, it will pass outside the foramen and tell us the canal is open. We would then have to re-prepare the apical portion of the canal to re-establish a choke bore or stop. In the case of this sample preparation, the absorbent paper point stops short of the reference point and tells us that the canal is properly prepared. We will now place the D11 spreader into the canal to check for binding. In our maxillary incisor, we measure the D11 spreader to 22 millimeters. No binding takes place. However, in small canals, lower anteriors and molars or canals with root curvatures, upper lateral incisors and molars, we want to adjust the stop on the spreader 2 millimeters shorter than the working length or 2 millimeters shorter than where it binds in the canal. If this step is not done, we could fracture the root since the spreader will wedge against the walls of the canal. We can now select and fit a master gutta percha cone. Since our preparation is to a number 60 file, we would select the number 60 master gutta percha cone. However, before we do this, we will try a number 50 cone in the canal just to see what happens if the cone selected is too small. Measure the cone to working length and insert it into the canal. As we can see, the point goes to working length, but there is no tug back, that is, resistance to withdrawal. A radiograph would show the looseness of the point in the canal and no adaptation apically. Now let's try a number 80 cone to see what happens if the point selected is too large. Measure it to the working length and insert it into the canal. We now have tug back, but the point does not go to the working length. A radiograph would reveal the point to be short of the working length. We will now select the number 60 master cone. Measure it to the working length and insert it into the canal. The master point has tug back, but it is a little short of the working length. We will now customize the cone to the canal preparation apically by using chloroform solvent. Dip 2/3 of...
Okay, so you are not routinely going to be doing this chloroform solvent thing. I want you guys to know this is possible, that you can use this technique, but what chloroform does is it softens gutta percha. So it's going to show how you can soften it and then kind of like mold it to the exact shape of the canal. You are rarely going to ever have to do that, but we can usually accomplish getting a good adaptation, a good size of our gutta percha by just selecting a different size, sometimes trimming a cone, custom trimming it with everybody should get, is just that you're not always gonna take, if your final file size is a 30, your final preparation size is a 30, you may not always just grab a single 30 cone and have it see exactly to working length with no problem. Sometimes you have to custom fit your gutta percha, and that's okay. So this is just one of those techniques. We are actually not going to practice this one in the clinic, but at least you'll know that it can be done.
Put the cone into the solvent for 3 seconds. Place the cone into the tooth gently but firmly until it goes to working length. A radiograph shows the master cone in place. It also shows how well it is adapted apically. Crimp the point with a cotton plier and bend the top over to the labial. This allows us to pick up the cone and insert it into the canal with the same path of insertion as it had originally. Remove the cone. Upon withdrawal, we can see the outline of the canal preparation on the gutta percha cone. The point is dried with an air blast and laid aside on a gauze sponge. Coat the last file used to working length, which would be the number 60 file, with Grossman's root canal sealer and place it in the canal. Rotate it counterclockwise and pump gently. Now pick up the customized gutta percha master cone and coat it with sealer. Place it slowly into the canal until the working length is reached. Make sure your orientation is correct in placing this point. The pre-measured D11 spreader is inserted alongside the master cone and vertical pressure is exerted in the long axis of the tooth. The spreader is rotated back and forth 5 or 6 times and withdrawn. Clean the spreader point with a gauze. A space has now been created for a fine medium accessory cone. Pick up an accessory cone, dip it into the sealer, and place it immediately into the canal. Repeat the procedure with the D11 spreader and take a radiograph to confirm that the gutta percha has reached and sealed off the apical area of the canal. Once this is confirmed, place another sealer-coated accessory cone. Use the D11 spreader until the spreader will only go a few millimeters into the canal. We'll now remove the excess gutta percha from the orifice. Heat the plugger end of the glick and insert it into the access opening. We can also use a touch and heat electronic heat source to do the same procedure. Remove the plugger and wipe off the gutta percha with a gauze. Repeat this step again. Heat the instrument, insert it into the access opening, and wipe off the instrument. After wiping off the glick plugger, reinsert it into the canal orifice and condense the gutta percha. A radiograph would show the gutta percha has been removed to the cervical line coronally, that is, just below the CE junction. Cotton pellet saturated with alcohol is wiped within the access opening. This removes sealer and gutta percha remnants. The excess alcohol is removed with a dry cotton pellet. An endodontic spoon excavator is used to remove any gutta percha remaining in the access opening. A dry cotton pellet is then placed into the access opening and slightly compressed. The temporary material is placed on the flat end of the glick and inserted into the access opening. It is then condensed using the plugger end of the glick. The flat end of the glick is used to wipe the material flush with the access opening. A wet cotton swab or pellet smooths the restoration and starts a setting reaction of the temporary. The radiograph shows the final fill from a straight-on view. A mesial angle film reveals a dense, well-filled root canal system. This completes the obturation of the root canal system. A mesial
So, a couple things. At the beginning, it talked about, it showed like testing for your stop with the paper point. That is a technique that some people do use, but I really don't want, once you've cleaned and dried your canal, I really don't want you taking a paper point out the end just to see if you can get any blood or exudate to absorb there. We just want to leave that area, we want to leave that tissue alone as much as possible. And putting that paper point there, it does check to make sure you have a good stop. But A, you should have already done that with your file. We practiced that with you yesterday, like putting that apical pressure to make sure it's not going to go farther than your working length and go out the apex of the tooth. So you've already done that. And again, you don't need to disturb the periapical tissues and because sometimes it wasn't bleeding to begin with, but then you stick that paper point out there, irritates it, and then it starts bleeding up in the canal. It's really annoying. Then you got to get that stopped, get that re-cleaned out, dry it again before you can continue with your operation. So don't worry about doing that with the paper point. Check your stop with your final file. Okay, or you can check the stop with the gutta percha, with your master cone, to see it to length. Put a little bit of apical pressure on it to make sure that it's not going to slide longer, further than you're working with. Also talked about setting the stop on your spreader. It showed like gauging your root canal length and then setting the stop on the spreader a couple millimeters shorter to avoid putting it too far, too much pressure against the wall.